Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to another edition of Hidden Tracks. We are here today with Alberto Alonso, a dear friend of mine from back in the day who has made quite a name for himself over in España. He is a radio show host. He was a TV host, an author, a father, musician, was in music videos. I mean, he's done it all. He's one of those people that saw what he wanted, went out and got it, and made it happen. So welcome to the show, Alberto.
Hey, what's up, dude? Pleasure to be here. Awesome. I never thought, like, when we were, chucking rocks and drinking Mountain Dews, hopefully we'll get some sponsor money over there. I never thought that, I'd be on your podcast, and you know what I mean? Like, down the road, like I'm talking decades down the road.
Listen, I never thought I'd have a podcast. I always thought I'd do something when it came to just talking about music, but I never thought it'd be a podcast because when we were growing up, there was no such thing. So
yeah, there weren't. I mean, it was radio and that was it, and TV, not the streaming and all that kind of stuff you get today.
Yeah, well, who was it on fucking Z100? The fucking morning guys that's what you had.
Oh, dude, the Morning Zoo, it was called.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all we had.
You know why? Because but somebody told me, one of my Spanish students here in Spain said, "Dude, I know where you got the inspiration for your radio show." And I said, "You do?" And he goes, "The Morning Zoo. I started watching it on YouTube." And I'm like, and I didn't even realize. I was like, "Oh my God, he's right." I had forgotten about Z100, the Morning Zoo, but then a lot of the conventions and things I do on my radio show, the energy, I got from them, indirectly,
Yeah. You don't understand what the surroundings you had growing up with actually play to who you become later on in life. Like, you grow up. I at one point, I never knew my dad, but he was always working. He was never around. Turns out in my 40s, I'm my fucking father. It's weird.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Reminds me of the Cat Stevens, speaking of music, Cat Stevens, right? Father and son.
Yeah.
The cat's in the crate. It's like, at the beginning of the song, the father doesn't have time for the son. And at the end, he's like, yeah, let me get the car keys, Dad. Come on. I don't have time to chat. The cycle of life, I guess,
Yeah, it's crazy. So you and I were big fans of music, and we bonded a lot over music, which was, you and I always running around in someone's car, radio blasting, listen to music in our bedrooms together. Like, just it was we were always surrounded by music. We always needed that mayhem in the background. And
sure.
I was reading Chris Cornell's biography the other day. Total fucking Godhead. Mm-hmm. Good book, really good book. And it was funny.
Cool, yeah.
There was a section about a show that they played at the New York Armory where it was sweltering, it was hot as balls, and people were passing out.
Oh, remember this. Oh,
do you remember that show? Because it's in his book, and I were at that show.
Oh, dude, this is why I'm so glad we reconnected, because I'm sure there are a lot of historic shows that we were at now. Oh, man, of course I remember it was hot as... can we swear?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Fuck yeah.
It was hot as nuts. It was hot as balls. We had just smoked a joint. I think that someone, I think they donated it to us, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't even, but I remember it like, that was like the icing on the cake. And it was awesome. It was Spoon. I remember the Spoon Man on stage as well.
Yeah, he had the Spoon Man out, but it was so funny reading a book and talking about one individual show in a book from years ago that I'm
Yeah, I
like,
mean, how many gigs did Soundgarden do and Temple of the Dog? I mean, he must, and Chris
yeah,
Cornell is a solo artist as well,
yeah.
you know.
And it was that one show, and I was like, I was fucking there with Bert. And I remember we woke up, like we fell asleep towards the end of the show because we were so high. I mean, and
We were
for
high.
everyone
It was
out there,
hot.
it was hot. It was so fucking hot. We were inside an armory, a metal building. It was
Yeah, yeah.
sweltering in there.
Used to store
And
tanks.
yeah. And next thing I know, we woke up. We were leaning against the wall somewhere. We woke up after the show
Yep,
and there was
I
no one
remember
there.
clearly.
And we're like, how? Okay,
It's
first
true.
off, how did they let us stay in here? And where the fuck is our ride home?
That was pre September 11th, because now that would never happen.
No. But it was just amazing that it was something that I read in a book that one of my great friends and I were at, that I'm like, all of a sudden it brought back that entire show. Like the band 11 opened up for him, and we were like, who's this? And they were like, wow, they're awesome. And then he brought the Spoon Man out,
Yeah,
but I
and
remember being at that show.
just the fact also that, we were there at the beginning. I mean, Soundgarden wasn't Soundgarden yet. I mean, they were like in Seattle, but they weren't like huge yet. We saw these bands when they were up and coming. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong here, we saw Radiohead with Chris Corcoran for $5 at the Irving Plaza or someplace like this.
Bowery Ballroom.
It was Bowery, and was it with, I think, Belly? They were opening up, just to show you, Radiohead was not Radiohead yet, the super mega band. They were opening up for Belly, if I'm not mistaken. I got to check these facts over here.
You are not mistaken, sir.
Oh,
not
wow.
at all.
That's great. Just to think, people, I mean, you can't get tickets to see Radiohead in Europe. They do they sell out like crazy. And we saw them like right in their faces, like, front row center in a small, intimate place,
That's one of my favorite things of going back through all my ticket stubs, and the fact that I still saved them through all these years, and like going through my stuff and seeing that, look at this. Oh, so I paid $8 to see the Smashing Pumpkins at Roseland Ballroom. I mean, what the fuck? And it's like right when Siamese Dream is hitting, and it's just going through all that stuff, that nostalgia that brings us back, which leads me to music played a big part in your life. It always has. You can see it in everything that you do. And there comes a time in your life where music changes for you. And it's usually as an infant where you hear something that changes your life from it's no longer Sesame Street or fucking cartoon theme songs. Do you remember what it was that changed for you? Do you remember the song or the artist that you heard that as a child, small child, you just said, wow, this is something completely different?
I think the first time I had that wow moment, and I've had so many, that's why I love music so much. It's, you're getting these wow moments, but I think it was Michael Jackson's album, the one with the tiger. Because remember, before we could go to the mall and buy CDs, and even before cassettes, our parents had vinyl, they had records, So a lot of the music you discover,
as you can see behind me, that's all my records. That's all I have now.
You know what to do. See, you're in the know, buddy. And I guess, it was that Michael Jackson, but, I remember the same thing with Dark Side of the Moon. And where I was just like, what is this? I remember that moment with Nirvana in an art class, in Miss Dickens' art class. A girl, we were allowed to put on music, and this girl brought in a cassette and she put it in, and I remember everybody simultaneously turning to the stereo system and being like, what is this? This is awesome. And it was, Nevermind, the album Nevermind, before it had made it big. And I was like, whoa, it blew us away. We didn't even have to speak about it. And for the next like 6 weeks, nobody said, oh, I'm going to put on this tape. We let her just play Nevermind over and over and over. I think we wore out the tape.
Yeah. And that's, I've talked about it before here, that Nevermind album, as pivotal as it was and how life-changing as it was for so many people in this world. I mean, so many people. For the entire music industry, it was pivotal. I cannot tell you the last time I ever listened to anything off of that. Like that's what it
Oh, dude.
that's what it did. Like it was so ingrained and it was so played, and I think everyone played it so much. I honestly can tell you, I do not remember. I have a good memory when it comes to music. I do not remember the last time I ever put it on, played a song, or actually listened to a full song off of that album. It's nuts.
Oh, well, dude, we're lucky here. Here in Europe, they play like they got a weird radio thing. You'll hear a lot of 80s, 90s. So the other day, I remember with my wife, we were driving in the car, and I think it was Lithium came on. You know, I will rest myself where. I mean, it was just like, and my wife naturally turned the volume up, and we just screamed at the top of our lungs. And we both looked at each other afterwards, like, yeah, that's why that was different. Like there were songs on before it and after it on the radio, but when that came on, it was like it was just from it. You know, you could hear the guys like heartstrings like ripping. You know.
Yeah, and it's weird to me too when it comes to something like that, how it was very short-lived. Like people don't remember, like the grunge era was a very short span. It was a blip that changed the way the music scene was. And
Mm-hmm.
for us, I mean, it was pivotal to us because it started in the 90s. We're in our high school years in the early 90s. And that's when it came
It
about. So it
defined our
was,
mindset.
yeah, exactly. It was, it was it was like how punk rock was in the 70s. It's the teenage angst. It's the something different. No one's
Mm-hmm.
ever heard this before. But it was such a
Rebellion.
a small blip on the radar. It was, here it is. I think it lasted 6 years, really. 6 years, I think, was the whole span.
Sure.
But it changed the entire music landscape, and it changed our listening, to music. Do you remember after you heard that Nirvana, what it was like for you to just find something else, or to completely go and figure out, okay, I've heard this Nirvana. How do I find more like this?
Well, that's why it's always good to have a friend named Shane Murphy when you're in high school, because he was always, this is not new, fellow podcast listeners. This guy has been obsessed with music, but not only obsessed, like I am too, but he's learned. I don't know if that's a word. I've heard it before. I think so. Learned. Yeah, like, your stuff, dude. And I remember you going to like, concerts and checking out the opening band and going through like stacks of records we used to spend like hours in record shops and CD shops and stuff. So, exploring, and again, having friends who like to explore too, and be like, dude, you got to listen to this song. Dude, you got to listen to this album.
Yeah, that was, I remember I've always had that sensibility of trying to find something that no one else knows about.
Mm-hmm.
During that grunge era, I remember pulling out things that were different. There was a band called 700 Miles that had one song that was one of the coolest fucking songs I ever heard in my life, but nobody ever heard of the band. And I played the one song for everybody. We're like, who the fuck is this? This is the greatest song I ever heard. And I'm like, and that's where I started to get that, okay, I'm not weird. Like I know things. Like I know how music is going to make people feel.
I've got an ear. I've got an ear and an eye for this,
Yeah. And that was, so one of my biggest points, and I've talked about this so many times, you and I we were in the mall at a record store. It was probably Sam Goody at the time, RIP Sam Goody. Mm. And
yeah,
I picked out an album, and the album cover was the little peg guy, Fisher Price peg guys on it. And it was Sunny Day Real Estate.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember it clearly.
Yeah. And we didn't know what it was. It was just a cool album cover. And we put it in my car on the way home. And I think that was one of my biggest changing points of music, because it was In Circles came on, and we're still in high school when this thing came out. And that's why it's labeled as emo. And I try to explain to people that blip that I just discussed with grunge, emo or post-hardcore. I like to give it the post-hardcore because the emo thing, it gets a bad stigma. But emo was literally 3 years after it started, because that was Sunny Day Real Estate. They're the godfathers of emo. And, I give it a little bit to Jawbreakers Dear You as well, but hearing that, and we're still in high school, and in fucking 94 or 93 when we found that. And that was just something, again, where we went in, we didn't know what it was. I'm like, this cover's fucking awesome. Let's get it. And then it fucking changed my life. Did you have any moments where you had a band where you never heard them, you just bought an album, and it was just something you're like, wow, this is a cool cover, and then it became a band that you've been linked to for a long time?
You know what? I guess I went by the book there with the don't judge a book by its cover, because I usually didn't, I wasn't as risky as you. That's again why I said, like, you were awesome, because you'd be like, all right, I just bought 20, for $20, you would like lend me one. And if I liked it, so I wasn't as risky as you. I mean, I was adventurous and I wanted to, discover new music, as you said, and, be on the cutting edge too, and find cool music and be in the scene, go into concerts. But I was lazier than you were.
Well, you had so many other things you wanted to do, which and music artistry. I mean, this is what we're really talking about, all artistry. You had a clear path of you wanted to be some form of art. Okay, you wanted to do something, and as I just did in announcing you, you're an author. You were a TV host, radio host, podcast host, in music,
producer,
producer. I mean, you've done it all, and you've always wanted to be that. And at that time, I remember seeing you were working, you wanted to be an actor, so you put every ounce of energy you had into that. And you've put 100% into everything you've done and more, and that's why you have all these things that you can now say you've done. And to call yourself lazy at the time, it's just because you were doing something else. I was lazy because I only cared about music. I wasn't working towards anything else but that.
But Shane, just think about this, dude. You remember how many teachers told us to shut up, and now we get paid to talk?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was always
Isn't that beautiful?
Dude, it's one of the greatest things that I can find. And there was an awesome thing that I saw. There was this guy, and he was a garbage man. He worked for waste management, and something had happened. He was in an interview, and he goes, "My teacher always told me that I'll never be anything but a garbage man, and here I am, a garbage man, making 5 times more than she ever did as a teacher." So who won?
There you go. That's a thing. Exactly. I mean, what is this? If you look at it, like, there's no like surefire way to success. You got to find your path. You got to find what motivates you. If you can find something that makes you want to jump out of bed every morning, and I don't mean as a job, just thinking about it, and you can parlay that into a job, that's the greatest thing ever, And as you said, I studied acting in the end, and I always knew one thing, more than even saying I want to be an artist. I knew that I wanted to create. And I don't want to be cheesy here and quote Jonathan Larson from Rent, the musical Rent, but he said the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. So if we're creating every day, we're, living, we're, contributing, I don't know, in music, radio. What I do is teaching too, which I think too, I feel good about that. I feel like I'm helping people communicate, and it's a lot of fun. We ended up, I think both of us, doing things that we love to do because we always followed, our heart, and kind of did the things that we were more attracted to. Music in both of our cases, presenting. Well, you yourself, you have to do with your job all the time. You have to sell yourself. You have to. That's, these are things that we do well. And now we're getting, like I said, we're grown adults, and look at us now, teachers.
Where are you now, Mrs. Boyle or Mrs. Smith?
I wasn't going to mention names, but now that you did, I've got a list over here.
No, I do think it's funny. And sometimes when I sit back and think, I mean, just for me to get this show off the ground, it took me a lot. I struggled, to the point where I'm like, who the fuck is going to listen to this? Who's going to care? Why am I doing this? But I wanted to do it so bad because I love it. And there was never that easy outlet for me to get it going. And I mean, how you were in the United States studying to be an actor, and that's what you wanted to do. And then you just pick up and go to Spain, and you just go and you created this entire world for yourself outside of what I listen. I don't want to speak for you, but what I think was different in your head of what you were going to become. How did you
Sure.
do that?
Everybody, I think, is in a different place a little bit.
Yeah, how
You know
did you
what, dude?
manifest
Again,
that?
I think following your heart. Like, I knew that I love New York. I was living in New York City and Chelsea for quite some time, but I was getting sick of the rat race. I was getting sick of the whole, you know, high prices, the elite. There was, there's New York City is an amazing place, and I'm so glad I live there. But I don't want to live there right now. You know what I mean? And so I've always had a connection to Spain because my father's from Spain. And I always said, I'd love to live, and kind of dreaming aloud, daydreaming. I said, I'd love to live in Spain one day because it is paradise. And my dad says, well, why don't you idiot? He goes, you have a passport. I mean, you got the papers you need to work. He goes, oh, I should do it with his accent. Idiot, you go whenever you want. You have the papers to work. No problem. He's like, don't dream, do it. So one day I'm not going to tell you, I'll make a long story short, but I applied for a job as a joke when I was on vacation here. And they said, dude, you're hired, And so then I had to make the biggest decision of my life, go back to New York and pack all my shit and come back to Spain and try, just throw caution into the wind, or, stay in New York and keep up with the rat race, which I was already getting sick of as well. I still wanted to create, but I didn't want to. I felt like the chances of me creating there were low because of all the the entry level of a Broadway show, all this stuff. There's a lot of competition. But now we live in an age where you can create your own show. You can create. Everybody knows now with a computer you can create your own thing. But you need the idea, you need the drive, you need the time. As we were saying before, a 20-minute, 40-minute podcast doesn't take 40 minutes to make. You know what I mean?
No.
So you know what, dude? I followed Shane. I followed my heart, and I always just did things I like. I got to Spain. That job didn't work out. I started teaching, and I enjoyed it because I like being with people. And I tried to do like stuff I learned when I was acting, like role playing. Okay, so I'm the dad, and you come in late. I'm like, as long as you live under my roof, and I would act out the different expressions, and they loved it. And then my boss said, hey, we're going to start a TV station. Want to do a show? And then that show went well. They asked me to do another one. And then, hey, you want to do a radio show? Until then I realized, well, why wait for somebody else to ask me if I want to do something? Start doing things myself. And then I get myself in over my head. And 4 books later, a podcast, oh, man, I'm restless. But at least, as I said before, when we were chatting before we connected here, I'm restless, but I found a way to take that restless energy, just like music, and put it into something. When we were going to concerts every week, we got out our aggression too, and we didn't only have fun, but it was like Zen. It was like doing a little yoga nowadays.
Yeah, no. And I still, and that's my biggest thing. I honestly said when the pandemic has happened, the thing that I have missed the most is live music, because I still rock out more than once a week. I had a show, and it's cathartic for me, and it gives me life. It gives me passion. It gives me drive. It helps me. It also gives me something to look forward to. One of the best things that I can do is when I buy the tickets to a show, anticipating that show leading up.
Sure.
And that's what, for me, music has. Movies do sometimes too, the anticipation. That's why there's trailers. And you can equate music to movies, where the trailer to seeing a band is actually listening to their album.
Mm-hmm.
But so if you were to choose through your entire scope and your entire life, and I know it'll be hard to really figure it out. It's always hard for me because I literally have 3 bands that I always go to. But do you have like a favorite band or a favorite artist that you constantly go back to, that you're like, that's it. Like, that's my favorite. That's who I'm always going to lean on. That's what I'm going to go to.
Well, I mean, I could say that for a lot of bands, I guess, too. But as you know, music is about moods. So, when I want to chill, The Doors or something like that. When I want to be pumped up, I want to listen to or inspired, maybe some Pearl Jam or so. So I'm open, and I've never been more open. I even listen to country music now, something that I used to mock, because I'm like, well, hell, dude, if it's good, it's good. It doesn't matter what the hell genre it is. Whereas, when we were younger, we were like, if it's not rock, it sucks. That was our music philosophy. But now we've become more open minded. So, but a go to, I mean, I'm going to say one that we have in common. And I saw when they came to Madrid, and I snuck backstage and I interviewed them. And I got to find that interview. I have it face to face, dude.
Yeah, that's my. So I have mine. I brought it out on a show the other day. I've been trying to keep things close to the vest and not let things about what I like, because it's not about me. It's about you.
Right. Well, but it's cool that when we have memories like that, we got to talk about them.
Yeah, and I mean, that was for me face to face as a life changing band. Like, I always liked punk rock, but face to face, still to this day, is I always like I said before, I have like 2 or 3 bands, artists that are my favorite and will always be
go-to.
And I don't think anything can surpass that. And face to face is one of those bands. Trevor Keith is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my entire fucking life. He is one of those people that exceeds your expectations as, you don't want to call like an idol, but someone I look up to in the music industry. There's my two favorite bands, Face to Face and the Posies. Have had the opportunity to hang out with both of them, and they've exceeded all my expectations on what I ever thought they could be as people, not only artists, and providing me with years of enjoyment to the point of talking to them and being like, you're fucking cooler than I ever could have thought and enjoyed you to be. And
well, they're generous. Like a real artist is generous. A real artist wants to give the audience everything they've got, from their emotions to their energy. So a real artist, I feel like these people who are just walking around like with their egos, I'm like, no. An artist gives themselves to the audience 100%, not holds it back and says, this is me, this is my persona. No, you give yourself like 100% raw to the audience, and sometimes they give it back.
Yeah. And I mean, you're saying, what kind of place did you see Face to Face in that you're able to sneak backstage to interview them? Like,
this is Spain, dude.
Yeah. How do you sneak backstage and then get the artist to agree to do an interview when you're sneaking around?
Well, okay, couple clues over here. The place was small as hell. During the last song, I stage dived, which I can send you a video of that. You could see it. Trevor Keith saying, go, jump. I stage dived. Thank God my friends caught me. So they already saw me like, all right, this is cool. I think I was wearing a CBGB shirt, so it kind of maybe stood out. In Spain, you don't see many CBGB shirts. Yeah. So, he was there weren't many people. So, in an intimate gig like that, the 20 people that are there, you know what I mean? And it was their first time here in Spain. And then, so I told a friend with a camera, I was like, come with me. We're going to go backstage. And there was one bouncer. That's all I had to pass. I thought it was going to be more. And he looked at me, he's like, hey. And I was like, hey, how's it going? I nodded. I gave him, what's up? And I just kept going.
Act like you belong.
And that's it. And then I got back and act like I gave him the Sullivan nod, like, hey, how's it going, paisan? And then, of course, I got in there. I was like, guys, before you freak out or anything, let me explain something. I'm a diehard fan. I saw you guys back at, we got to tell that story. Where was it? The Trade Winds? Was it? Somebody painted the thing on
Birch Hill nightclub in Oldbridge. Birch Hill nightclub in Oldbridge.
We were almost KO there. We were almost in the car. And somebody, I think it was Lauren was her name, came out with her mascara and painted the freaking smiley face. And we went in, dude, and we saw Face to Face. That concert tasted even better.
Yeah.
Because we almost didn't get in. I forgot what I was getting at. I got all excited there.
No, but you were talking to the band and you're like, before you guys kick me out of here. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not a weirdo. I'm a huge fan. Here's my credentials. I've seen you here, here, and here. And also the fact, remember, this was in Spain. So I spoke perfect English. And they're like, all right. So then Trevor Keith said, joking around, security. Nah. Come on in, man. Yeah, sure. I was like, you mind if I ask you just a couple questions? I teach English. Yeah, I explained come on in. They were, as you said, awesome dudes, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, they are, and still to this day, every time I see them, I've never been disappointed. And I mean, the two bands that I've seen the most in my life are the Posies and the Face to Face, because they're my favorite, and I always go out of my way whenever I can to see them. And I've never once walked out of a show going like, they could have been better. Never once. And I mean, they've been doing it for 30 years. And I've never once been like, yeah, that could have been better. I mean, that's just who they are as an artist. Right. And it's just amazing that people still can do that and have that drive and that passion. But I guess if you're doing something you love, instead of, some artists become musicians because I want to be a rock star, and then they don't become a rock star, and you go see a band and they're like, well, I'm not as big as I thought I'd be. And they don't give it their all anymore, which sucks.
Right. Well, also, I've had kids come to the radio and I ask them, class trips. I'm like, what do you kids want to be when you grow up? And I've had kids say famous. I'm like, you can't study for that. That's not a you got to do something. Being famous. Okay. For what is the next part of my question. So I feel like nowadays, if you, show some cleavage or whatever, you show your muscles, guys, you're an artist, you get a following. But back then you had to have talent. I feel like in many avenues. I'm sure you don't want to talk about the state of the music industry today.
Well,
the Billboard charts or anything like that, do you? You don't want to go there, right?
Well, what's funny is when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, you said it earlier, and I've said it 100 times here. If it's good, it's good. Doesn't matter who it right. is. If it's good, it's good. If Bieber puts out a good fucking song, it's a good song. You can't take anything.
Turn it up.
From. Yeah, and some of this shiny bubblegum stuff, the bubblegum pop where it's really shiny, overproduced. I go to this movie all the time, the movie Pop Star with Andy Samberg. It's so fucking funny because I think it totally portrays the music industry of what it truly is nowadays, where it's, I recorded these 12 tracks and I brought in 112 producers to produce one little thing on each song. And I think that's what it is. And right. and you start to lose the actual artistry of what is music and having a voice too. Being a good singer is an artist. That takes a lot of talent. Like absolutely, you have to be really good. Like as much shit as people may give American Idol or The Voice or these singing competitions, to have a good voice and to control it's an art form, and you are an artist even if you're a singer. And so I'm okay with that.
Dude, tell Freddie Mercury. Tell Freddie Mercury he's not an artist. You know what I mean? Yeah. His voice did more octaves than most instruments can hit. You know what I mean?
I always say with Freddie Mercury, he is, if you're having like a rock band draft, like a fantasy draft, he's the number one pick every fucking time. And he's the Tom Brady. He's going to win every time. He's going to win you the most competitions. He's the greatest lead frontman vocalist ever of all time. No one can touch him.
Ever. Hands down. Yeah.
But I mean, you brought up listening to country now. We're older. And I had gotten into the singer-songwriter, leads into, I grew up with country with my dad. My dad listened to like old school country, Dan Seals, and real country, Merle Haggard,
Woody Guthrie, that old, or
Woody Guthrie, all that kind of old stuff. So I always had some country in me. And when I want to say in probably the early 2000s, country started to get a little shiny, but I was still listening to it, and that was like Toby Keith and Brad Paisley and all these guys, and I didn't mind it. And then it took a huge left turn, and that's where I think the state of country music went now, where it became more that bubblegum pop shine to it, which again, it's not terrible, but it's different, and you have a hard time figuring out when something changes drastically. You always have a hard time trying to latch onto it. Like if something in your life changed drastically. I had a really bad situation in my family, lost my sister, and something changed drastically.
I remember.
Yeah, and it's hard to figure out how to move forward. And I think the same thing happens in music. When something changes so drastically, you want to just change everything and move as far away from it as you can. And that's kind of like in my personal life, I was kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do now. And I try to change everything all at once in my life. Like get married, stop drinking, stop. Like I was trying to change everything all at once, where it was like that big drastic change. You can't do that. You kind of got to ease into it. And in our older age now,
sure,
being able to listen to country, I think it's just that maturation process that we all go through at some point in
Mhm.
life. You start to mature. You got married, you had a kid, you
Right.
start to mature, and things change. And I think that changes what your listening habits when you get older. I always throw it out here with Bruce Springsteen. When I was fucking 18 years old, I didn't give a fuck about Bruce Springsteen. I didn't know what the fuck he was singing about because I wasn't where he was. Same thing
Mhm.
with Bob Dylan, greatest writer of all
Right.
time. I mean,
He was more for
greatest.
like our parents or like a little like
Yeah, he's a lyrical poet. He literally is a poet, but I didn't fucking understand. But now I can sit down and put on Dylan or Springsteen and be like, "Oh, I fucking totally get it." And was I stupid or was I
Mhm.
just immature? And I think that changed a lot.
Mhm.
And I mean, did you have any of those moments where it comes to band? I mean, you brought up country, but is there somebody that like you would just even, when you were younger, be like, why the fuck are you listening to this? And then all of a sudden you're just like, now that you're older, you're like, oh, I totally get it. I just wasn't ready for it.
I think like a group like that would be like ABBA, like one of these European like melodic, Mamma Mia, here we. And when I was a kid, I was like, this is ridiculous. But now, as somebody who likes music and I can appreciate what they're doing and the singing and the harmonizing, and that they were writing the Bee Gees, these kind of like groups that before were like even boy band. I gotta say, so the other day an In Sync song came on, and I was doing the bye 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 dance.
Well, it's hooks, man. It's hooks and
Yeah,
harmonies that get you.
yeah,
And
no doubt, no doubt.
and that's, I mean, hooks and harmonies. Listen, yeah, boy bands for our era. I mean, our first boy band really was the Jackson 5, right?
Sure, and some may even argue the Beatles, because what is the
Yeah,
definition of a boy band? All boys, similar look, love songs, making the girls swoon. Wait a second, that's the Beatles.
yeah, and that's, so you bring up the Beatles, and I've made this point a bunch of times, and I want to see if you'll agree with it. My theory with the Beatles, and you said boy band, and yes, they were a boy band. That's why I say so. The Beatles for me created a genre of music, and people always say, well, it starts with the Beatles and then everything else comes after that. But for me, I go, well, the Beatles basically created Michael Jackson to Justin Timberlake. That's what the Beatles did. And then for me, I'm a Stones guy. Like, I'm all the Rolling Stones are
Mhm.
that's my all
Oh
time.
yeah,
And I go, the Stones,
Stones. Yeah,
Stones created Zeppelin. They created Aerosmith, AC/DC. So that they both went in different directions, but I don't think the end all be all was always the Beatles. I think the Beatles created that boy band, that pop, that Michael Jackson, the Justin Timberlake later on.
that craze.
And
Yeah, the
yeah,
craze. I think. Yeah.
I mean, would you agree to that, to see that similarity in two major bands at that same time was the Stones and the Beatles, and they just created two different types of music?
Absolutely. And they both evolved too, but the Stones always, even from their name, I mean, it comes from a Muddy Waters song. So the Stones were very clear of their blues influence. And the Beatles were much more into frolicky, let's try this instrument. They were all experimental, which is why they have different phases. But then, you know what I like to do? Like you, I'm sure as well. Okay, it doesn't start at the Stones and the Beatles. We got to go back to see who they were listening to, Muddy Waters and all these guys. And then if you keep going back, you're like, who was Muddy Waters listening to?
Yeah.
And that's when you start to really, the rabbit hole goes deep. My wife and I, on my honeymoon, you would love this. We did, speaking of Bob Dylan, we did Route 61, the Blues Highway. We went down the Mississippi River. We slept in cotton fields. We went to where Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil. And if you love rock and roll, I always say this: you gotta love the blues. It's
Yeah.
baby.
I just got goosebumps. Like, and that's, and you bring that up, and the Stones came to America to record at Muscle Shoals, where
Oh
Muddy
yeah.
Water,
Mm.
like, and that is it. It starts with the blues, and that's one of the big things that I was very lucky to have. I mean, growing up, my grandparents, I had a lot of incarnations of music, and my grandparents listening to jazz and vocal jazz, and the staple in the New York, New Jersey area where we grew up was always Sinatra. But my grandmother wasn't a huge fan of Sinatra, so I grew up listening to the other things that were like Sinatra, which was Tony Bennett and Dean Martin, and she loved Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and
Ooh,
Patty. I'm going to mess up her name, but I got to listen to all that other stuff. So it broadened my horizons to the point where I still love it to this day. And being a kid, I used to hide that from people. So I used to hide the fact that, yeah, I'm in high school and I like to listen to Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong, and I wouldn't really tell people about it. I would listen to it on my own.
Right.
Because at that time, it was for me a guilty pleasure. I mean, you threw out an ABBA, and I would categorize that as a guilty pleasure. But do you listen to anything that somebody would be like, dude, what the fuck are you listening to? And now I know we're older and now we just own everything we listen to, but you still have that millisecond. I talk about it all the time. Regardless of what you think and how tough you are and that you don't care about somebody judging you, that 1 millisecond before you say, fuck you, I like it, you still have that 1 millisecond of apprehension of like, oh shit. Do you have anything that somebody would be like, what are you listening to, asshole?
Yes, definitely. I remember driving around New York and in Madrid too, blasting Les Miserables in musical theater, but like singing it at the top of my lungs, do you hear the people sing, acting it out and everything. And I get like so into it. My wife's like, you're going to hurt yourself, man. So it's not even just that it's musical theater and it sometimes gets a bad rap for being over dramatic, but also, it's it's written to be like sung out. And so, yeah, I've been caught. I've had people look into the car like, what is wrong with you, dude? Because I'm like acting out like I'm in prison, like Jean Valjean or something from Les Mis.
And listen, and what's funny for me is, I'm a judgmental asshole, and I'm not even going to judge you on that because Les Mis, I had a talk with Julia from Rat Boys, and we were just started talking about it. I'm like, that's honestly my favorite soundtrack of all time. It's my favorite play. I've seen it like 27 times. It's just, it's ingrained in me, and it is. I don't want to call it musical theater because it's not. It's just a perfect score.
Epic.
To tragedy. Like, it's the perfect tragedy score I've ever heard. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And I don't think there ever will be.
One of my first book, English Everywhere, it's called. I wrote it. I went snowboarding with some friends up in the Alps. So I was like, okay, I got the perfect environment. I woke up every morning early before we hit the slopes. And I'm like, it's my first book. I want it to be epic. What's epic? And I was like, Les Mis. And I just had Les Mis on repeat as I wrote that. And I'm like punching away, 7 a.m., third cup of tea. I'm like, come on, gotta get out on the slopes. And it was just inspiring, to have that soundtrack playing in the background.
It is inspiring. And that's where I think that Broadway, the musical theater, gets a bad rap sometimes. You brought up Rent earlier. I remember seeing Rent when it came out, and I was like, okay, this is going to be weird because I knew it was touching on some subjects that were at the time when it came out were extremely controversial. But I went and saw that play, and it was one of the best things about being where I'm located now and where you used to be located is being able to just, what do you want to do today? Let's go to a Broadway show because we're 30 minutes away.
Sure.
Just being able to do that. And I remember seeing it, and it was with all the great, actors who, when a show comes out on Broadway, they get all the big names. When I saw the producers, I got to see it with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick when it was, big, because you have that opportunity to do so. The same thing with Once. Once is one of the greatest Broadway shows I'd ever seen. Great movie too, even though it's a, B classic movie. But those scores, they get a bad rap, but it's still music. It's just a different type of music that you have to learn to appreciate differently. And I think as you get older, you and I think we got it because, we were, drama geeks. We enjoyed that drama. We enjoyed the plays.
Exactly. Yeah. We didn't join the band, but we were in plays and stuff. So we were, always exposed to music and song and acting and performing in general. And as we said, we both parlayed it into something we do. And I think even though we could 5 years could go by and we haven't spoken, I think there's one thing that we both have in common. We're both listening to music every single day.
There's a reason why every car comes with a radio.
Right.
You know, I say that all the time. It's a part of everyone's life, whether they put on the radio themselves or not, or they're listening to music. It's always a part of your life.
Mhm.
And when something's a part of your life, like as a performer for yourself, do you remember what it was like the first time you performed or sang a song during a play? Do you remember that feeling, what it was like when you were leading up to that moment and then after that moment? Do you remember that first feeling you had?
Yeah, it was as it should be nerve wracking. It was totally nerve wracking. But at that point, I didn't know that there's such a thing as good nerves. So like, there's nerves like, oh shit, I'm not fucking prepared. And there's nerves of, I really want to do good. I don't want to screw this up. And I realized later on in life that my nerves were usually that second one, like, okay, and then I learned to recognize those and use that nervous energy and kind of get it out and kind of get that out into the audience. So I was very lucky from an early age. I found a way to channel it. So it was nerve wracking. And then at the end, very rewarding. When people applauded or you say, I remember one of the plays we did in high school. I was always acting, but singing, I was like, oh man. And I was shitting bricks. And then I remember you guys came, like they brought all our classes. I'm like, so it wasn't bad enough that I had to sing here in rehearsal, but now you're going to bring the whole friggin' school in here to hear it. I mean, I don't mind if it's parents, but these are my peers. They're going to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it was nerve wracking yet rewarding. And then later on in life, I learned that those nerves are not a bad thing. If they're the ones that are where you're sitting there like, I really want to do good at this. It just shows that you care, obviously.
Yeah. I love that definition of the two types of nerves. Like I've never, this is why I do this. I learn something new every day. Without learning something new every day, it's a waste of a day. I've said it 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I never really expected that. And that was kind of like trying to start this show. Like I've been talking about it for years. And I was so nervous. And it was, you said it earlier, going into doing a 40-minute to an hour and a half show, people don't realize what we really go through to do what we do and to prepare for things like this. We had our own issues this morning trying to get together and do this. And it was, there's so much shit that can go wrong. And to try and make something good, I want to tell people, listen, if there's something that goes wrong through one of these episodes or recordings, deal with it, because we've tried everything we can to make it perfect.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, and some things are correctable. Well, I know that as a producer myself. Some things, like if there's like a weird, like you slap your lips, or you can take stuff like that out. Of course, it takes more time. But sometimes there's stuff you can't fix where you're interviewing someone and in the middle of a word, the connection cuts out. There is no editing software in the world that's going to put that. Well, maybe not. Maybe now there is with the voice recognition, but usually, and for normal people, there's no software in the world that's going to fill in that blank. Another thing, if your audio is, these are things, if your audio is too loud, it sucks. You're screwed. It's hard to get it a lot lower. On the other hand, though, if your audio is too low, it's no problem. You can always punch that up a little bit. So there are certain tricks too, but you learn these tricks by putting in the time and the effort it takes to learn something. So you don't just sit down in front of a mic either. You got to research, what mic am I going to buy? So even before you have the idea for the podcast, you got to be like, okay, all right, I got to spend some money, but let's make sure that I'm, at least researching it and seeing that this is right for my needs.
Yeah. And I mean, I really have to say, I mean, you being an old-time friend and we're sitting down talking, we haven't spoke to each other in years. The last time you were here was years ago.
Yeah. Because the last time I went on my honeymoon and I wasn't in the area, so I was all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I enjoy about this is we became friends in high school and we bonded over a lot of different things. One of the big things was always music, though. And here we are 30 years later, still talking about music like we never left each other. Like we've talked to each other every day for the past 30 years.
It's true.
And I think that's what
That's the power of friendship and the power of music.
yeah, and that's what I mean. And I think music leads to that friendship. I think it brought us together where we had similar likes and we enjoyed the same things. We enjoyed the Broadway stuff, being in plays together. We enjoyed, listening to musical scores. We enjoyed listening to grunge and punk rock, but it brought us together, it united us, and here we are 30 years later still talking about it. And from across the world, which is
But
fucking
this time
amazing.
in front of a mic, and this time in front of a mic too, which when we were kids, there was no mic. I mean, we may have been like holding a pen in our hands, like, so Shane, what do you think? With TV science and all that. Well, hey, all those, as you said earlier, these are all bricks in the wall. We didn't realize that TV science, Ralph Cook, was going to inspire us to learn how to edit, years later. Okay, it's not VHS, but he taught us the base, the idea of how you produce a show or an audio or a video piece.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, I mean, it's the building blocks and, and figuring it out as we go along. We're going to fuck up. We're going to make mistakes. Just like artists, I've seen many concerts where, I mean, Adele at the Grammys telling him to start over. Like, when did you ever think you would see that? Like, when did you ever think you would see that? And I was like, you know what? I was like, yeah, I was like, you know what? Good for her. Because it's not going to be the best that it can be. So we're starting over. And that's what we have to do. And that's why, I appreciate our relationship we've had over music. I appreciate the fact that we can still talk about it and where we've come and what we've done in our lives with it. That formal, informal background that we had with it, which is amazing. And I mean, for all you've done, it is amazing.
Well, as you know, too, I work on the radio, but I teach English through my books and on the radio. And one of the primary ways I teach English is through music. So, I'll teach them, or they'll be like, I don't know how to say this expression in Spanish. I'm like, well, think of the Bruno Mars song. Today, I don't feel like doing any. I'm like, you got the structure right there. So you could just put in anything. I don't feel like eating. I don't feel like drinking. So Bruno Mars gave you the structure. So I use music even as a teaching tool.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too. Like me diving into music, I'm a fucking music nerd, and one of the things always is like you can hear a Scottish singer. He is, when he talks in an interview, you need fucking subtitles. But when he sings, he sings clear as day. And I'm like, how is that possible? And I start looking in and how it all works. And it's all enunciation. And they sound perfectly like they're from America because their enunciation of the word turns it to that, which is, it's crazy. It really is crazy that, you can hear Japanese singers, they can't speak a lick of English, but they can sing in English through enunciation.
Right. Sure. Well, so Ozzy, I remember the first time I heard Ozzy Osbourne speak. I use the enunciation. I use the pronunciation. I use the lyrics. So for vocabulary, for grammatical structure, so many different ways we can use it for intonation. But like you were just saying, I thought of Ozzy Osbourne. The first time I heard him speak, I was like, what? He sings like an American, like, bark at the moon. And you're like it doesn't sound, it's not like, because some bands, Britpop, it's supposed to sound, hello, you lovely girl. Okay, that I get that that's the sound, but most British people sound American.
Yeah. What I think it was Russell Brand. He was in an argument with somebody and he said, I think it was aluminium instead of aluminum. And somebody's like, that's not how you say it. He goes, I'm saying it the correct way. It's aluminium. And I was like, that's funny because it is. It's the fucking correct way.
Well, when somebody does, I have British friends here in Europe, living in Europe, obviously. And a lot of times I'll say tomato and they'll be like, don't you mean tomato? British people like to correct Americans. And you know what I do? I instantly go at them. I'm like, are you telling me, wait, stop a second. Are you telling me that my mother is a liar? Are you telling me my mom has been lying to me all these years? Because she swore it was tomato. And then they're like, whoa, they weren't expecting that answer.
You're making them feel like an asshole, which is great.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, so you're saying my mom doesn't have any idea what she's talking about, the person who educated. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your pedantic nature,
So I don't want to keep you that much longer here. We're going to come in on our time. So I got two questions left. One is going to be extremely self-reflective. And
Okay.
I like this question because I'll get a full understanding. So you are an artist because you're an author, producer, or TV host. You sang in music videos.
I use my voice
bands.
every day to create. Yeah.
Yeah. So as an artist that you are, if you weren't here tomorrow, what would you most like to be remembered for?
I think I'm going to try and answer without thinking about it too much, just off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
I think I would want to be remembered for being a generous artist, somebody who gave their energy, somebody who had something to say. And I like to think, even as an English teacher, I have a platform where I have, on social media, over 100,000 followers. I realize I'm more than an English teacher, and I can spread positivity. I can spread good music. So to leave behind more than I took.
Yeah. Good answer, man. Good answer.
It came from the heart.
Yeah. No. Where it should. We're not writing Weird Al songs where we would turn that into a fart. So, so the last question I want to ask you today is, we end our show with our weekly threes. 3 things you're listening to right now that you'd want someone to check out. 3 things that you're gonna, enjoy, or that you have been enjoying. Can be new, can be old, it can be whatever. It could be another podcast, or it could be an audiobook, whatever it is. What do you have that you've been listening to that you'd like people to check out?
This is a really tough one. Well, I'll start with podcasts because I listen to them a lot. There's one I listen to. It's very popular, and I like it because I always learn things. It's called Stuff You Should Know. And it reminds me, dude, of you and me. 2 dudes chatting about the Titanic, chatting about, drones. And it's cool because you learn stuff, you laugh, and they do musical and movie references. So it's a lot of fun. You learn and you're entertained. I think it's kind of what I do too, what we call edutainment, educational entertainment, where you're learning, but you're also because what we've realized, I think, as educators now, you don't need to bore people to learn. Like, it's quite the opposite. You need to get them interested. You need to get them hooked. So great one. Stuff you should know. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Music. Lately, I've been listening to, what I do, Shane? I have Spotify, and they have pre-made playlists. So what I do is I choose a decade, and I'll spend like 2 weeks in that decade. So, and I remember I started in the 20s, then I went to 30s, the 40s. And right now, I guess I'll just say, 50s music. With my daughter, I'm using music to teach her how to speak and everything. And it's incredible because she doesn't really speak many words yet, but what song she's singing. So she's already got the pauses and just to show you how music's already innately in this girl. So 50s music in general, because it's melodic. A 50s playlist, there you go, on Spotify. It's got your blue moon. You saw me standing above. And
my mother's dancing right now. My mother's dancing right now.
Well, I'll tell you, it'll bring you way back. It'll bring you way back because this is the stuff, as you just said, that our mothers played in the car. This was their oldies. So our oldies now is Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Their oldies was, Del Shannon and, Run, all these songs.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird seeing Pearl Jam on the classic rock station.
I know, dude. Don't you feel old? And I guess the last one, I really want to give you like a great suggestion, and nothing's coming to mind. You know what? Since we were talking about face-to-face, I'll say Rise Against, which is a group that I know that they've played together and they have utmost respect for each other. Not literally, I used the machine. Rise Against for those of you.
Yeah. So I actually used them last week. Their band that I had a segment on the show. It's Just in Case You Forgot. Mm-hmm. And it's just in case you forgot about a band or how good they are. And I used, and Rise Against, for me, it was either last week or the week before. Every time a song comes on through one of my playlists or somewhere, I forget how fucking good they are and how much I love them. Like, amazing. And it's one of those bands that I just always forget about. Like, I'm always like, they're fucking awesome. Every time I hear them, I'm like, they're amazing. and shit, why don't I listen to them more? Even though I have their entire discography, I'm like, they're fucking amazing, and I completely forget about them all the time. So it's funny that you brought them up now, because I literally, it was last week or the week before that they were in my threes, because I just was like, I forgot about you.
I mean,
now I'm going to listen to
just
everything.
Music. And it's hard, Shane, nowadays on the top, we're talking about the Billboard charts, to find good, like rock, not processed, and Rise Against, another one, Billy Talent. Like these guys, you know, they're as rock as you get now on the Billboard charts. They don't have the stuff that we used to listen to, that more lo-fi stuff. You know, it's all polished, as you said. But again, if you can raise your fist to it, you'll see me rocking out to some Fall Out Boy songs. You know, I don't like to admit it. That's another guilty pleasure. But yeah, a little Black Parade or something like that. You know, I'll get into it.
Awesome. Good three. My three for this week are Dinosaur Pile Up. They're a British rock band. Pretty fucking amazing band. I don't even know how to explain it. Just listen to them. Another band, Spanish Love Songs. One of the bands that I feel terrible for during quarantine and everything that transpired. They had some major momentum going, and it just got stopped in their tracks. But Spanish Love Songs. And another band is called Nothing. If you want to look them up, they're called, their handle is Band of Nothing, but they're just called Nothing. Just great rock, alt rock, post hardcore, really different. Everything they do is different. I saw them a couple of years ago. Just fucking awesome. So this week is Dinosaur Pile Up, Nothing, and Spanish Love Songs. Those are my three for this week. Alberto Alonso, dear friend, I want to thank you so much for being here. And to all of our listeners out there, check out what he's doing. I'm going to give him an opportunity right now to tell everybody how to find everything he's doing. So why don't you take this opportunity to say something to maybe some new fans for you, your fans that currently listen to you, and how to find all your stuff.
Sure. Well, first, thanks again, dude. It was great catching up. I can't wait to hear the finished project, because in the end, guys, you're just going to hear two lifelong friends chatting about music. You can't get much more natural than this, you know. We're just missing a couple beers and a bar. Hey, give us another round over here. That's all we're missing, you know. If instead of boring you, because I use Instagram, all of these, you can go to my website. It's albertoalonso.com. And there you'll find my Instagram, my Facebook. I teach English, but remember, if I'm teaching something in English, the word comes in Spanish too. So those of you who want to learn Spanish, follow me, because you could just flip the script, you know?
That's awesome. So thanks again, brother. Really appreciate you being here. As we end this, as always, everybody go out and have a great fucking time. Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions to myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band. And don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.